Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Sorry, we've been a bit quiet on this channel at Grayling Consulting. It's for lots of good reasons because we've been extremely busy. Welcome back, and it's nice to see you again. We're going to be trying to post a little bit more frequently. What's been going on since? Well, quite a lot. What are the top news stories that we've been talking about this week in particular? Well, Rachel Reeves crying in the House of Commons seems to be the number one most commented on topic in on LinkedIn. What's our take on that? Well, I did wonder. I thought to myself the response was probably going to go in two directions, and rather predictably, that's exactly what it did do. We had this great outpouring of support from people saying, actually, it's quite nice to see the human side of politicians. It's quite nice to see somebody opening up. I'm not sure that was necessarily the intention. I think my take on it was actually, lots of people do like to see the human side of politics and politicians in particular, particularly for Rachel Reeves, who I should probably say there was a small overlap at university when I was at the same college as Rachel. Not that we knew each other particularly well, I'm not sure that was her intention to go out and show the human side of politics or politicians. But I think what it did show was that actually the circumstances that she finds herself in. I'm not saying that this has all been handled perfectly, because it definitely has not. But the circumstances she finds herself in, trying to meet the challenges of the job, are extraordinary. And I do think it shows a nice side, actually, to remind us that these are human beings and that human beings do have a limit. What we had, of course, on LinkedIn as well, was a massive outpouring of the really predictable argument of, well, do you know what? If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Slightly ironically, would people have responded in the same way if she was a man? Would the circumstances have presented themselves? I mean, these are all of the avenues that everyone's gone down. I think, to see really senior leaders, directors, CEOs on LinkedIn saying, if you're not tough enough for the job, then you shouldn't be doing it. We need strong leadership right now. What I kept thinking was, there was one person in particular who put exactly that, saying, this is a load of nonsense and clearly not up to the job. They were the CEO, or they represented about 5 or 6 really big companies. They were senior directors, managing directors. They were very senior in lots of different organizations. If I was a senior leader who worked in one of those organizations, seeing that, I'd have found that pretty dispiriting, because it sends out a very clear message that, in our organization, the person at the top, the person who is speaking, on these topics, clearly believes that any sort of vulnerability is to be avoided, to be stamped out, is not appropriate. And so if they're under pressure, which I'm sure, as big, complex organizations they would have been, they would have got that really strong message that I must not show any weakness. And then we wonder why people burn out. We wonder why people, push themselves too far and then become, useless to their organisation. Because of course, they have done. I'm not just suggesting that we should consider the organisation. We've got to think about the personal cost of that, of course. But if you're a senior person of a person as a CEO of an organisation like that, is that really the message you want to send to your people? Push yourselves until you can push yourselves no further, and burn yourselves out on behalf of this business? Or a more responsible one, which I thought we'd come round to, which is look after yourselves a little bit and make sure that everything's a bit more sustainable for everyone's benefit. But rather predictably, we saw both of those sorts of things. As I say, I think it was kind of nice to see that human side. I don't think that was her intention, but it was disappointing to see the really predictable response from a lot of people, which was, oh well, if you're not tough, it's obviously not tough enough for the job. I thought those days had gone. Clearly not. The other thing that we've been talking about a lot is I was in a meeting this week, and I was talking a little bit about what I wrote about for my dissertation. So I did a master's degree during lockdown, during COVID, on psychosocial studies. And the dissertation that I wrote was about why people were turning down the COVID vaccine. I thought it was a really interesting topic. It was kind of difficult because we were right in the middle of the pandemic, and so the data kept changing every single day. There was an update, so that was an interesting thing to keep up with. But obviously that meant that I was exploring all sorts of different angles, and there are lots of reasons why people were turning down the COVID vaccine. as it turned out, some more legitimate than others. But I was talking about, the information, the glut of information, the misinformation that is available to people online now, and how the task of educators in particular is not to give people information anymore. They've got information. They've got too much information. Everyone has access to all of the information that's ever been collated in the history of the human race via a device in their pockets. Yes, I did literally just look to take it out of my pocket and then realised that it's recording this video. So yeah, okay. Should you listen to anything I have to say about these sorts of things? Maybe not. You can make your own decision. But I said that for those people who are out there and are susceptible to conspiracy theories and all the rest of it, I said it was really interesting to see why those theories and why those ideas are so attractive to people. And one of the reasons why they're so attractive to people is, back in the day, we think about the famous Dunbar number of about 150. In other words, there's about 150 people that you can have a meaningful connection with or a meaningful relationship with. And anything more than that, your brain really can't cope. So when social media connects us to thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of people around the world, we get this idea of sort of being connected. And of course, we're not. Those are false connections. It's not the same as a proper human connection. That in itself gives you a sense of insignificance, because human beings are used to being part of a community of 50, 100, maybe 150, not 8 billion, which is what we are now. And so there's this sort of creeping sense of insignificance of, I don't really matter. Does anything I do really matter? Because, the grand scheme of things, who's going to remember? The sort of temptation, or one of the things that's really engaging about, all sorts of conspiracy theories, is, of course, this sense of, I am special because I have seen the truth. I have peeked behind the curtain. I am different from other people now. I'm part of this small little special group who understand what's really going on in the world. And that feels pretty good. It gets rid of this sense of sort of insignificance that people are having to deal with now, and that's pretty intoxicating. So, and at that point, somebody sort of nudged me and indicated that I should probably stop talking in this particular meeting with a client, and afterwards took me to one side and said, the partner of the person you're speaking to is quite well known as being a conspiracy theory fan, should we say? So perhaps I wasn't making the quickest of friends there. But it's an interesting take on the whole thing, I think, and it was one of the things that came out that still, and it's developing more and more, this sense that conspiracy theories are particularly attractive because it brings you into this sense of, I'm special, I am, part of the chosen few. And we know that human beings like to feel part of a special group. We like to feel part of an in-group that's cracked it, that's seen beyond what all the other sheeple, another sort of rather telling term, have seen. So yeah, absolutely. It's been lots of things that we're talking about when we're discussing psychology and the work that we're doing, whether that's responding to daily news, or indeed, what's going on in the vast world of cyberspace. So look, I hope you're very, very well. It is Pride Day here in London. So wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a very, very lovely Pride Day. And it is, more important than ever. Here in the UK, we have seen ourselves drop down the rankings. We are actually going backwards in terms of our attitudes towards the LGBTQ plus community. And things are not getting worse rather than getting better. So Pride matters more than ever, I would suggest. People say, well, hasn't Pride had its day? Apparently not. Apparently it's more important now than it has been in a long time. So support your local Pride organisations. Have a fantastic day, and speak to you again very soon. Take care.